For the first time today, you can actually see the buildings that are breaking out of this cloud that are south of where those two 107 towers once stood. Cleanup and rescue efforts underway right now. Rescue workers working 24 hours on, 24 hours off. As you heard Bill Hemmer report, thousands of New Yorkers still volunteering their services, some of them being turned away because now there are more of the professional workers who have been able to work their way into this part of the city who are applying their crafts. Joining me right now are three people, three New Yorkers who have been deeply affected by this tragedy. They are Alina Galprin, Greg Dubinsky, and James McDonough. Welcome. All three of you were going to school several blocks away when this happened. Alina, what do you remember from that morning?
Well, I was on the ninth floor facing Twin Towers, and we were all in the front of the classroom, and then we hear an explosion, and we all thought it was thunder, but then someone screams World Trade Center, and we all run to the window, and we see this huge hole in it, and there's smoke coming out, and we're like, oh my God, and it was really scary, but I guess no one realized it then until 20 minutes later when the second plane hit, and that's when everybody started.
So you actually stayed in the school till the time the second plane hit, which happened 18 minutes late?
We stayed until the first building collapsed.
So no attempt to evacuate the school at that point?
No, because they were scared that debris was going to fall on us.
What were you doing at the time?
At the time, I was on the 8th floor, watching through the window after we were informed that the first plane had hit, and I actually saw the second plane vanish behind the building, and the building just erupted in a cloud, a huge cloud of an explosion, and I witnessed people jumping, I guess out of desperation, from the towers.
You actually saw that?
Yeah.
And James, you didn't see either one of the blasts, but you certainly got involved in the mess afterwards. Describe to me what happened once school officials realized the severity of what you were dealing with.
Well, they said that we're going to evacuate the school and to leave through the north exit, at which point we all left and went to the exit. At that time, the South Tower collapsed and everyone ran back in.
Now, at this point, debris is falling on the south side of your school.
Yes, and Tribeca Bridge, which leads to the school, was totally engulfed by dust and soot.
Wow. We're going to show some pictures now that some of you were able to take that shows what the area looked like. Describe to us, and you don't have to picture by picture what you saw, but give us a sense of what these pictures point out.
I was just, after the first plane hit, I took out my camera and I started taking pictures of the huge hole that was in the World Trade Center and the smoke coming out. And later on, after we ran up the West Side Highway at 23rd Street, and I turned back and I took another picture of the Twin Towers not there.
I'm seeing this right now.
This is what I saw out of my window.
And I can't believe once you saw that, you guys just didn't run out of that school.
I really wanted to, but we realized that there was a lot of debris and we couldn't. But I just really want to get out of there.
How many of your fellow students have parents who worked in the World Trade Center?
A large number, in fact, and I actually know one person who had both parents in the Trade Center. I know people who had firefighters for parents who still are missing, and my heart goes out to these people.
It is a horrible nightmare these people are living because in the firefighters' case, we know that they are instinctively trained to go where the flames are, of course not having any idea of what hit that building and the intense heat that was going to be involved in its meltdown. You know, the city officials are telling us many of those firefighters can be presumed to be dead, but there are workers who worked in the World Trade Center below the crash site that were injured and been sent to area hospitals, and family members haven't been able to catch up with them. Do you know of any parents in that situation, or kids in that situation, trying to find out if their parents are hospitalized?
Yeah, my aunt is looking for someone, and we just know that there's not a lot of hope for them because they were on the 104th floor of the first building, and it's really sad.
James, what has this done to your school, and to the kids who make up the heart of it?
Well, everyone's very traumatized. We all realized it later, just how close we were to dying. And now we can't go to the school. The south side is completely covered in debris. We have to go to Brooklyn Tech starting Thursday. and we don't know how long we're going to be there. We don't know when we can go back to school.
I know, Elena, you said you wanted to get out of there really badly, but you were afraid the debris was going to fall on you. Do you feel the same way James did? Do you feel like that could have been you?
Yeah, I do, but it's just terrifying. I really want not to be so close there at that point. I really didn't want to be one of the lucky kids next to in such a wonderful place in Manhattan. I just wanted to be as far away from there as possible, and we couldn't even leave the school and had to just watch it on the news and right out our window. It was terrifying.
I think one of the biggest challenges for parents all over the country is to figure out how you talk to your kids about this. Now, you are old enough to understand the reality of terrorism and what it means. I think Bill Bennett yesterday says this is not the end of it. This is beginning of a new kind of war. How much discussion has gone on between you and your classmates and your teachers about what you witnessed?
Oh, well, for sure, this is going to leave an indelible mark in our generation, and nothing will ever set this right. Life will be different forever, but I know that as a Stuyvesant student, this incident has only strengthened my resolve to put whatever abilities and skills that I possess to work serving others and helping my country.
You know, it is interesting. We have already seen in the last couple of days a tremendous resurgence of patriotism. There are stories of Walmart and Kmart selling an unprecedented number of flags, a couple 100,000 each at each one of those places. Do you feel the same way? Do you feel that sense of resolve as an American?
Yeah.
Are you mad, though?
I'm so angry that this could happen here to our country, but it's amazing how America, and especially New York, has come together and showed an amazing sense of patriotism. I mean, we hung a flag out. There was candles lit everywhere yesterday. It's just amazing how we've all come together.
And yet I've heard many people your age, in fact many adults, talk about hearing jet service resume in the city last night. And while some welcome that sound as, you know, a symbol of things getting back to normal, others said it terrified them. Do you think you'll ever hear the sound of a jet in the same way, James?
No, not really. When I heard those jets fly over my head, like every 10 minutes, I'd always get a little frightened that something's happened. I actually walked by St. Patrick's Cathedral when I was going to Greg's house, and I heard a jet, and I was frightened that they were going to hit it because there was a memorial service there, and I didn't know what was going to happen. You don't know whether the jet is on our side or theirs.
So you think you're going to have to live the rest of your life thinking twice about every backfiring truck, every jet you hear in the sky?
Every single one.
Have you guys been able to sleep at all?
Well, of course not. I mean, the things that we saw just have a horrible effect on us, completely traumatizing, and I can't believe that human beings could do something like this to another.
I think
I haven't slept at all, really. The first night I got to bed at 5 o'clock in the morning because I simply couldn't
speak up a little louder?
sorry. I could only get to bed at 5 o'clock in the morning because I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. And I had to find something to help me relax. I was listening to music or reading a book, some kind of distraction.
Lena, final word from you?
Yeah, I could hardly sleep or eat. I couldn't really concentrate on anything else because it's terrible. It's on the news, the radio, everywhere in your mind. And you can hardly sleep or do much except think or cry about it.
Well, we appreciate all three of you joining us this morning. I know school gets back underway next Thursday, but you were forced to move to a new school. I hope that your studies can go on and that you can heal a little bit. Thank you for sharing your stories this morning. The three of these very smart students just shared with you how strongly they feel about being an American, and I wanted to show you some pictures last night that I think are a very strong reminder of how seriously the nation took President Bush's call for a day of remembrance and reflection. You saw vigils all over the country last night where people spontaneously either came out of their homes with votive candles or hanging American flags from their homes. And actually, I guess we don't have that video ready later, but it's pretty powerful stuff. And we will, of course, try to show you more of that a little bit later on. But for now, let's head back to Atlanta, where Miles O'Brien is standing by. Hi again.
Hello, Paula. When I came home last night, the candles were burning. It was a sight I won't forget. Let's recap the latest developments in America's new war. Congress has okayed a resolution authorizing President Bush to use force against those who are found responsible for the attacks against America. Congress also approved $40 billion to fund the war against terrorism. and repair and rebuild the damage from Tuesday's attacks. 2 senators want to revive war bonds to finance the war against terrorism. The last time war bonds were issued was during World War II. Representative Barbara Lee of California was the lone congressional dissenter on the use of force resolution. She said this: "I have agonized over this vote, but I came to grips with opposing this resolution during the very painful memorial service today as a member of the clergy so eloquently said, 'As we act, let us not become the evil that we deplore.'" Lots happening in the investigation this morning. We've been telling you about the first arrest of a material witness perhaps linked to this attack on America. The FBI continuing to investigate numerous detainees who have information, including 2 people who were arrested off of an Amtrak train, now headed back to New York. In their possession, box cutters. They happened to be on an aircraft Tuesday morning during the time of this attack, an aircraft from Newark to San Antonio. It ultimately was grounded in St. Louis, a rather ominous indication that there are perhaps many other suspects out there, authorities confirming that very fact. On the list of 19 suspects who are on those 4 planes, most of them have direct associations or indirect associations to the infamous terrorist Osama bin Laden. We turn it now to Brent Sadler, who is in the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon. He is with some family members of one of the people named on that list. Brent?
Yes, one of the suspects is Ziad Samir Jarrah, and I'm at the village of Al-Marj, which is near the market town of Shtura in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, not far from the Syrian border. And there is a meeting of the family of Ziad Jarrah, who are taking condolences, and clearly a family in shock and sorrow here for what's happened within their own family, it seems, and of course what's happened in the United States. This is a well-to-do, well-educated, well-off family. Some of these family members have been educated or worked in the United States. They're well-traveled. They represent the area here in terms of winning recently the elections here. And what we're getting here is the picture of Ziad Jarrah, a 25-year-old Lebanese, who we understand 4 years ago, this is confirmed by the family here, went to Hamburg, Germany, to learn about electrical engineering. We understand from Germany that he was at technical college there in Hamburg at the same time as another suspect, Mohammed Atta, who was in the aircraft, we understand, according to investigators, which hit the first of the World Trade Center towers, the North Tower, and that Ziad Jarrah was at college at the same time as Mohammed Atta. Ziad Jarrah, we understand from sources within the family, and this is very significant, they say that Ziad Jarrah went to Afghanistan some 18 months ago and spent some time there, we don't know how long, and then earlier this year, it's understood from a family member, he went to the United States, to the Miami area. He has a Turkish girlfriend, we understand, and was living in the Hamburg area during his studying time. In terms of a build-up of the personnel of Ziad Jarrah, we're told that he went to a missionary school here. A very mild-mannered, shy boy is how his father was describing his son. The father himself, Samir Jarrah, had open-heart surgery in February this year. It's understood by the family members that the boy came back here, that Ziad Jarrah came back for that father surgery. And these pieces just falling together now, and we hope to get more information about the background of Ziad Jarrah as the hours go on. Back to you.
Brent, just generally, what's the reaction of the family? Are they denying everything? Are they? What exactly are they saying when presented with the fact that Ziad Jarrah is on this list of 19 possible hijackers? Well,
they're saying that they don't have enough information or any information about precise details of the investigation. They're confirming that he's missing. He hasn't been heard of since before the terrorist attacks in Washington and New York. And that they're waiting for, this is the official view, that they're waiting for more information. But there's obviously some sort of split on how this should be put out within the family. Some are prepared to talk and give information, others are not. There are journalists now assembling here in this remote village in the Bekaa Valley and trying to get more information. The family have put guards now on one of the buildings here. Journalists are being pushed away, 1 or 2 cameras being pushed forcefully away, and information may be difficult to get. But certainly as far as the nuts and bolts of the investigation are concerned, the family are saying they do not know anything about those details. All they know is that The relative, Ziad Jarrah, went to Hamburg 4 years ago and is missing. These other details are coming out from other elements within the family.
All right, Brent, let's just recap this quickly so that our viewers are very clear on this. Ziad Jarrah, with roots in Lebanon, we know, according to his family now, as well as investigators, spent a good deal of time in Afghanistan as well as Germany, and then in South Florida, training at some flight schools there. Ziad Jarrah was on the passenger manifest for United Airlines Flight 93. That was the flight which took off from Newark Airport, bound for San Francisco, made a U-turn somewhere over Cleveland. The transponder went out at that time. Passengers who were calling their relatives at the time on telephones indicated they were going to attempt to attack the hijackers. Investigators do believe that Ziad Jarrah was the most qualified person in the aviation world on that plane. It might very well have been the one at the controls or seizing the controls at the time. In any case, we've been suspecting that there was some sort of struggle on that plane which caused that plane to crash into a rural part of Pennsylvania as it was headed toward Washington. Let's send it back to Paul in New York.
All right, thanks so much, Miles. I wanted to give you a quick update on what the nation is facing here in terms of the death toll. It continues to climb. The city confirming for us this morning that the confirmed death toll is 185. In addition to that, rescuers have found 408 other body parts. And in perhaps one of the more gruesome details that we have to share with you this morning, the mayor is urging friends and family members of missing people to gather materials that might help the medical examiner identify their bodies or body parts. That includes bringing to them to a special armory center set up downtown, which is known as the Family Center, things like toothbrushes, hairbrushes, eating utensils, worn and unwashed undergarments, chewing gum, items where a person would be likely to have left cells. You're looking at a close-up picture now of what rescue workers are up against. We can tell you this morning that by last night, more than 13,000 tons of debris had been moved. That means hundreds and hundreds of truckloads of stuff taken out of here. We also can tell you that folks that study real estate patterns in the city are now telling us 20% of all the office space in that part of Manhattan is known to be destroyed or damaged. Now, and one of the more bizarre things that's going on now is the reports of looting. We might have explained to you, because many southern arteries in the city are closed, it's very difficult to get down into this area, but nevertheless, some folks have found ways to use fake identification to get into the area surrounding Ground Zero. There was a report this morning that someone was arrested for stealing watches from a jewelry store that was in business not far from where the World Trade Center went down. The mayor is also warning that many of you folks across the country may be getting telemarketing calls asking for donations to victims here and in Washington and Pennsylvania. And he says these are a hoax. These telemarketers are specifically targeting the elderly. If you get a call from a telemarketing firm asking you for donations to help out with this effort, you are instructed to call your local police department or the FBI. They will follow up. According to Mayor Giuliani, law enforcement officials are going to do everything in their power to arrest the folks that are now doing this horrible thing. Right now, we're going to check in with Bill Hemmer, who joins us from the Jacob Javits Center, which happens to be a staging area for firefighters. And Miles, I know, excuse me, Bill, I know that you've already gotten a good sense of how New Yorkers have been deeply affected by this, and in particular about the death toll among firefighters. And I wanted to mention that we have learned on September 23rd that 1 million people are expected to attend a memorial service for all of those New York firefighters that were killed.
And more testament, Paula, as to why so many volunteers have turned out here on the west side of Manhattan. Again, I mentioned the numbers, well over 1,000. I think it might be climbing to 2,000. People have come down here to try and volunteer in order to get on buses, head south down to the southern end of Manhattan. Behind me again, people standing around waiting for some sort of direction. The word we're getting, though, is that the good bulk of these people will have no chance of getting on today. Just a few moments ago, some of that frustration boiled over here. You know, so many people want to get so close to the situation, help out any way they can. We have some videotape that can display that frustration. The workers here were told that they would not get in today. Paula, what is happening there, Paula? Is that those are volunteers who wanted to show people here, especially the state troopers who were escorting and making sure things stay in line out here, to let them know that they want to get a chance to go down, but indeed that will not be the case. Why? That's a good question. Let's bring in Craig. You're from Philly, is that right?
Yeah.
You came up from Arkansas,
yeah,
working
a gig down there.
What did you hear over here as to why you will not be able to get in today?
Well, I've been down here for about 3 days, and every morning they tell us to come back at like 5 o'clock in the morning. We come here, we wait around 3 hours, and then they tell us that there's a couple of specific companies that are down there. They're working contract jobs now. You've got hundreds of guys here who are absolutely qualified union workers that are willing to go down there and work for free, and they've got a couple of contracts now and they don't want to accept it. So they keep telling us to come back, see where we can help out, and they never take us.
What they're telling you to check in periodically throughout the day?
Check in every 2 hours, but I've been here for 3 days, and it's been the same story every single day.
Craig, what's your trade?
I work in an office, but I'm an American. I just wanted to come down here and help.
You've been here 3 days?
Yeah.
Have yet to break?
Have yet to go down to work the site. So I've been helping out where I can, working with Salvation Army.
Will you turn away today? Will you come back? Will you hang out? What will you do?
I'm still going to come back because hopefully, you know, like those guys down there have got to be tired. They got to have some relief.
Okay.
So
good luck, Craig.
Yeah,
thanks for sharing your thoughts. Also on the streets of Manhattan, Paula with us today, trying to cover the story from a number of different angles. Dr. Sanjay Gupta is outside St. Vincent's Hospital down in Greenwich Village, and Elizabeth Cohen at the Armory on the east side of Manhattan. Let's go to Sanjay now to find out what's happening thus far this morning. Sanjay, good morning.
That's right, Bill. Good morning to you. St. Vincent's Hospital, as we do know, one of the hospitals on the front line of all that we've seen, one of the closest hospitals to ground zero here. And a lot of the patients that were initially brought, about 552, were in fact brought here. But many of the calls, as we also know, didn't come to the doctors that have stood by for 4 days now. And that has been extremely frustrating for them. I have certainly heard the word unbelievable several times used by journalists, which I know is a word that isn't used by journalists very often. Impossible is a word that I've heard used by my buddies here who are physicians here in New York. It's impossible because while there were so many people affected by this tragedy, many of those people never saw the doors behind me here to this hospital. And instead of patients here, Bill, we see vigils, we see posters of the missing, we see flags, things like that. Let's put in a little bit of perspective. There are still 4,717 or so missing. 185 bodies have been found. Only 59 of those have been identified. This hospital behind me, St. Vincent's, they treated about 552 patients, but 4 days later today, Bill, only 35 of those patients still remain in the hospital. Bill?
All right, Dr. Sanjay Gupta with us here in Manhattan. Thank you. We'll check back in shortly. Again, we are on Manhattan's west side. Want to head back to the east side of Manhattan and check in with Elizabeth Cohen outside the Armory there. Elizabeth, good morning to you.
Good morning, Bill. I'm here in the corner of 26th and Lexington. The Armory is behind me. This is where families come and give information and get information. They give information about their loved ones so that when they can be found, hopefully, or if their remains are found, they can be identified. You can see behind me that there are posters on the wall. These posters are all over New York City with the faces, the information, identifying characteristics of the people who are missing. Now, just a little while ago, Rosemary O'Keefe, who's the Commissioner for Community Assistance in the Mayor's office, came out and said that as of last night, 3,178 people have been through the doors of the Armory to register their missing loved ones. And that sounds like a lot, but she says it's not enough. She knows there are many more. And she urged people to come out and register their missing loved ones because they need to let the authorities know that they're missing so that when remains are found, they're able to match them up with the person. Also, beginning today, immediate relatives can come here for DNA testing. What happens is that a swab is taken from the inside of the cheek, and then again, when bodies are found, they will then be able to hopefully do some cross-matching with the DNA of a close relative. Again, families are still coming here today. The lines are nothing like they were yesterday or the day before, but families are still coming. The information that they get is that there are two lists. There's one list of people who are in the hospital. There is another list of people who have been found deceased. Most people who I have talked to, their relatives haven't been on either list, and so they still remain hopeful. Let's talk now with Captain Joe LaSalle, who's with the Salvation Army. Come on up here, and let's talk a bit about that kind of hope. Tell me about the hope that you were hearing from these families.
Well, all of the families that I've seen, as long as there was no sign. I mean, they were still saddened if they had not heard about their loved ones, but at the same time, they were still hopeful, which I think is a good thing because, I mean, although it's been 4 days since this tragedy, there still is hope, and I personally, I believe that it's better for them to have hope than to just give up and say, oh, well, you know, I might as well forget it and go home and plan a funeral, you know.
Do they ever ask you what you think the chances are that people will still be found alive?
So far, none of the families of the victims have asked me that. I just see a lot of hope and a lot of positive things so far since I've been here at the Armory.
When I've heard that same hope too, I've heard almost no one be at all sad or at all skeptical about the chances of their loved one being found. Do you try to give them any kind of a suggestion of reality of what the chances are, or do you just let them have their hope?
No, I believe I believe in just letting them have their hope. And some people are amazing. I mean, there have been other instances where people have survived 5, 6, 7 days under rubble and have still come up. You know, although the large amount of people that we're talking about here, this may not be reality.
Thank you, Captain Joe LaSalle with the Salvation Army. Bill, back to you.
So many sad and tragic stories, Elizabeth. Thank you. Elizabeth Cohen at the Armory again with us on the east side of Manhattan. Paula, that's the scene from down here. Again, we talked about the volunteers. We'll talk with more of them coming up here shortly. Also, the Salvation Army is here as well, and they are saying the early word is that donations have just poured in at this point. They're almost telling people to stop for the moment because they cannot handle the great number they have. We'll follow up more with that shortly here. Back to you, Paula.
I guess, Bill, what I've been struck by is you've interviewed people is the fact that these folks are so undaunted. That one man you interviewed who has come back for the third day and still hasn't been able to do anything, but they keep on coming back.
Yeah, we talked to two women who came here 2 days ago. They were turned away yesterday, came back at 1 o'clock this morning. They were in line when we showed up about 6 a.m., still trying again to get back into the location further south from here. But more than anything, you know it better than I do, Paula, because you live here, but it's a testament to the spirit and the pride of this city, and indeed we're seeing it once again today.
I have never, Bill, in all the years I've lived here, seen anything like it. And I know you've heard reports of this, of local restaurant owners bringing food down to the perimeter area, people bringing clothing, people donating blood, doing whatever they can to pitch in. It is quite a remarkable display of strength.
You're exactly
All right, Bill.
right. And at this point, it's not going to stop. Back up to you. We'll talk again shortly.
All right. Thanks so much, Bill. Right now, I wanted to give you an idea of what happened after the president made some eloquent remarks at the National Prayer Service at the National Cathedral yesterday, with Reverend Billy Graham also making some very potent comments about he well understands how even Americans who believe in God might question what God would allow for something like this to happen. Vigils like this popped up all over the country. These vigils were being promoted online. I know we got some emails here encouraging everybody to come out of their homes last night or out of their cars at 7 o'clock to light a candle in honor of those who have lost their lives, in honor of those who have been injured, in honor of those families whose lives have been shattered by that.
Young and old and people of all
Let's listen in.
persuasions. And it's fantastic to see that we all have one thing in common, that we love this country.
Felt really horrible, this whole situation. I think it was a big shock to everyone, and I think everyone was stunned at first, and I think we're all doing the best we can.
think it's absolutely amazing that the government is taking such a unified stance towards all of this. I mean, to see Mayor Giuliani, Hillary Clinton, and Governor Pataki all standing side by side in unity, I truly feel that they and President Bush are giving this city a strength that it has never seen before.